They buried her at sunset, but by morning the grave had opened from the inside. And the villagers say, her eyes were still watching. This is the tale of Nancy, the cursed bride of Dogo village, buried beneath red earth, with a soul too vengeful to rest. A curse whispered in the dark, a grave that sees, and a secret too terrifying to stay dead. Beep. Let me tell you a story that the elders refused to speak aloud. In the heart of a forgotten valley, far from paved roads and electricity, sat Dogo village, a place carved from tradition and silence. The air smelled of smoke and old clay, and the nights came too quickly, as if the sun feared what lived in the dark. On the edge of the village stood a crooked baobab tree, scarred with hundreds of carved names. Beneath its roots, people whispered, "The soil remembers." And no one, no matter how brave, dug near it. But one girl didn't have a choice. Her name was Nancy. She was the daughter of Kato the healer, a quiet man known for speaking to spirits more than people. Her mother died giving birth under a blood moon, and since then, strange things clung to Nancy like flies to fresh fruit. They said she walked in her sleep and spoke in tongues, that she could call birds from the sky and knew when someone would die. The elders feared her, the children mocked her, and the men, well, some desired her but none dared marry her. Until Jumo, the chief's son, proud, handsome, hungry for power, he claimed he loved her, that her strange beauty was a blessing, not a curse. But on the night before the wedding, a storm blew through Dogo like a scream. Thunder cracked the skies, and in her hut, Nancy screamed too. Eyes rolled back, mouth foaming, voice not her own. The wedding went on anyway. They danced, they sang, they drank honey wine until the stars blurred. But the very next day, Nancy was found dead, lying beneath the baobab, eyes wide open, mouth stuffed with red earth. No wounds, no blood, the soil, packed deep in her throat like someone had tried to bury her alive. Jumo claimed she had walked to the tree herself, that the spirits had taken her. But Nancy's father, Kato, did not cry. He stood at the funeral pyre with dried leaves in his hand and whispered something in an old tongue. The flames refused to burn her body, so they buried her instead, at the base of the baobab tree, just before the sun dipped behind the hills, at sunset. But by dawn, her grave was open. The villagers found claw marks on the inside of the wooden box. Her body gone. All that remained was a whisper. The grave was empty, and yet, no one searched for her. Not Jumo, not the chief, not even the elders. They said, "Let the dead remain dead." But strange things began to happen. That night, Jumo's mother woke screaming, said she saw a woman at the window, eyes glowing like dying embers, mouth filled with dirt. 3 goats were found gutted in their pen, their blood smeared into symbols no one dared translate. And every morning someone found footprints, bare, small and deep, trailing from the baobab tree straight to Jumo's door. Jumo changed. He stopped eating, stopped speaking. He stared into nothing with eyes that trembled and twitched. They said he smelled of old flowers and something worse, rot. At night, he whispered in his sleep, "She sees me. She watches from the soil. I should never have touched her. She knows." What did he mean? Well, only Kato, Nancy's father, knew the truth. The healer lived on the edge of the village, where the wind never blew. People said time moved differently inside his hut, and that Kato had made a deal long ago, to trade his wife's soul for his daughter's life. Now he whispered to the fire night after night. They buried her body, but her curse, they set it free. Because Nancy had not died naturally. Jumo, driven by fear of her power, had fed her poisoned honey wine before the wedding, just enough to slow her heartbeat. He'd wanted to fake her death, bury her, and inherit her dowry. But Nancy had woken in the coffin, and she had remembered everything. Now the curse was moving. The soil itself had eyes. People saw faces in the fields, shadows behind doors that were locked. Babies cried at nothing. Fires lit themselves. Wells ran black with dead insects. The baobab tree, it began to bleed. Sticky red sap oozed from the carvings of names. Birds refused to land on its branches. And at night it whispered. Then came the first death. Jumo's younger sister, Zena, was found buried alive. Her face twisted in terror, nails broken, mouth filled with dirt, just like Nancy. Next, the elder who oversaw the funeral fell from his hut, eyes missing, soil packed beneath his eyelids. One by one, those who stayed silent died, each death more grotesque than the last. But Jumo, he hadn't died. No, he was changing. His skin began to blister, then harden like old bark. His eyes turned the color of wet earth. He stopped speaking human words and began muttering in an ancient tongue, one even Cato feared. The villagers begged the ancestors for help, but the drums brought no answers, because the ancestors were watching too. And all this time, the grave under the baobab remained open. But never silent, because beneath that cursed earth, something had awakened, and it was still watching. The grave beneath the baobab no longer held Nancy's body, but it held her rage, and now it was hungry. That night the earth opened. It began in silence. No warning, no scream, just a slow, wet cracking sound as Jumo's hut sank into the soil. Villagers ran, torches raised. But when they reached it, there was nothing. Only a wide, gaping hole where the ground steamed and pulsed like breathing flesh. A single item lay at the edge. Nancy's bridal veil, stained with blood, and still warm. Then Cato appeared. He'd covered himself in ash, bones tied to his neck, a blade carved from obsidian in one hand, and in the other, a bowl of her grave soil. This curse, he whispered, was not hers to carry. And with that, he walked into the pit. The hole led to a chamber, deep and ancient, lined with skulls and vines that bled. And in the center she stood, Nancy, but not as they remembered her. Her skin was pale and cracked, her eyes glowing red beneath a film of dirt. Veins of black clay wrapped around her limbs, pulsing like vines alive with vengeance. Yet her face, it still wept. Cato knelt. I failed you, daughter. They buried you in fear, not love. Let me carry what you should not. And Nancy remembered. Her father's voice, the kindness in it, the ache behind the ritual, his sacrifice. But Jumo's spirit was there too, twisting behind her, trying to drag her back to the grave, to keep her a prisoner of rage. So she spoke. Her voice was like wind through a tomb. You buried me, but I was awake. I felt every handful of soil. I counted every breath until there were none. But now, I choose what dies. The ground shook. All around the village, huts collapsed. The baobab split down the middle with a sound like bones snapping. Jumo rose from the pit, but he was no longer a man. He was soil and shadow, his face half cracked and crawling with insects. But before he could attack, Nancy screamed. Not from her mouth, but from the ground itself. A scream of betrayal, of rebirth, of reckoning. The soil consumed Jumo. dragged him screaming into the roots of the baobab, his curse sealed. The village was ruined, but alive. Nancy's grave, now filled, was quiet, and from its center a small flower bloomed, white as bone, red at the edges. They called it Eyes of the Earth. Every season it bloomed in silence, and every child was taught the tale, not to fear the grave, but to fear what wakes inside it. Some say they still hear her whisper when the wind blows through the trees. Some say the earth still remembers who betrayed her, and some see eyes watching from beneath the ground. So tell me, if you dig into the soil tonight, what might be watching you? If this tale chilled your bones, make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell, because there are more whispers waiting in the dark. Until next time, watch the shadows.